All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Recovering Families podcast. I'm Stephen and I'm here with
Um,
my sister Terry.
hey, good evening.
My dear sweet sister, what's good today? Tell me, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Busy day. Busy
Yeah,
day. Um, Kids with children all day,
yeah.
all
hmm
ages. It's been special. So,
Oh, at the church.
at the church, yes, for our
Uh-huh.
Black History program, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to be really special. I'm excited to see how they do tomorrow. So, yeah. But I wanted to share something really funny as I was getting ready for the podcast tonight. I said, you know
Mhm.
what I do appreciate about podcasts, about recording podcasts,
Yeah.
is that I realize that pants are optional.
Yes, they are.
Pants are optional.
They
So I'm not
are.
going to say whether I am or am not wearing pants, but I will share that it is my choice.
I love that. Well, at least you put lipstick on today.
I did. I put lipstick and I have earrings on,
Oh,
and
wow, wow,
yeah,
wow. And you're wearing
yeah.
purple, and purple looks
And I'm
so
wearing
great on
purple.
you.
That's my color. Yeah.
I
Yep.
love
Yep.
that.
Yep. How
Yeah,
was your day?
it's good. I was just saying to our guest today that it's a beautiful day here
Mhm.
in LA. It's like sunny and 73 degrees.
Ooh, that's
And
nice.
it's beautiful. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful day. So
Awesome.
yeah, so I popped out for a little bit, and
Mhm.
I'll probably pop back out when we're done with this conversation. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a good day, and BB's on the bed next to me over there.
of course.
So yeah, all is well in the household. Uh, so the topic that we're gonna focus on today
Mhm.
is mental health and
Yes.
how important mental health is and how it affects us as individuals, but
Mhm.
also when we think about it beyond the individual, how does it affect the family?
Right.
How does it affect the family and even a community?
Yeah.
And so I thought one of the best people to bring on to have this conversation with is my friend Ellen. And I know that you and I have been, this was on our list of, many topics we want to talk about. And I think one of the reasons why we want to talk about it is because mental illness has impacted our lives greatly
Mhm.
in our family.
Yeah.
I mean, not without, but we have at least two members of our family who are dealing with mental health issues,
Mhm.
and it's challenging. We've
It
talked
is.
about how
Mhm.
challenging it is,
Mhm.
and how we want what's best for that individual, for those individuals. We want
Mhm.
them to get help that they need, but we also, in the process, trying to find ways to take care of ourselves too,
Right.
to not for us to not get lost.
Right.
What do you have to say about that? When I say that, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think one thing that comes to my mind is the fact that I can't help but think to myself, "Oh my God, is that going to be me?
Yeah.
Am I, how deep is it in me, and how deep is it going to go? How deep is it going to get? Am I going to, you know, um, one day just find myself wandering, out to my car and not go get to my car and wander somewhere else. You know what I mean? It's like, how
Yeah.
deep is this in my family line, and how deep is it in me? I mean, I think that's probably definitely one of the main reasons why I started therapy, and why I started therapy this time more aggressively. As
Mhm.
I'm not playing with it this time. I think that's one of the big things for me is like, oh my God. When I talk to my kids, I try not to sound like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I don't want to, yeah.
Yeah,
I
no, I
try
get
not
it.
to sound a certain way.
Mhm.
And I'll ask Chelsea all the time, "Oh my God, do I sound like so and so?"
Mhm.
She's like, "You do right now." And she's looking at me like, "You do right now." So yeah, so that's a big thing for me. What do I, am I doing enough for my mental health?
Right. Right.
That's another thing. That's yeah.
That's great to hear. Can I just tell you how
Yeah.
how comforting it is for me to hear you say that because I've
Mhm.
had those same thoughts about myself.
Mhm.
For most of my adult life, I've been
Mhm.
afraid of ending up like our loved ones who
Mhm.
struggle with mental
Mhm.
health issues, and I have really gone out of my way to take care of myself because I don't want that to be the case for me.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we can talk about too when Ellen comes on is how we're all susceptible to mental health issues, disorders, what have you, because I found myself this past year, I realized that I've been dealing with low grade depression for quite some time and
Mhm.
anxiety as well. I'm highly functional, but it takes its toll.
Yeah.
And I want to really impress upon people that mental health issues come in all shapes and sizes and colors and to varying degrees.
Mhm.
And to not think that it has to look or sound a certain way in order to question it and try to get help for it
Right.
because I thought in order to be depressed I'd have to be someone who keeps the blackout curtains closed and under the
Mhm.
bed covers and can't get out of bed
Mhm.
and live my life. Like I
Mhm.
said before, I'm very functional. But no one is immune to it. No one is immune to it. So let's get Ellen on. Let me just first tell everybody about Ellen. So, Ellen is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in trauma and complex post traumatic stress disorder. She has over 25 years of supporting students, parents, families, LGBTQI, and BIPOC individuals with the unique challenges they face in life. The last 13 of those years, Ellen has been a mental health practitioner, system of care leader, parent advocate, trauma specialist in Hawaii and Virginia. Ms. Wright utilizes an eclectic approach that blends trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, body centered somatic practices, behavioral neuroscience, nature based therapy, and mindfulness into her work with clients. So let's bring Ellen into the studio.
Yay.
Hello.
Hey!
Thank you all so much for having me.
Oh, so
We're so
glad you're
happy
here.
to be here. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Ellen, listening to Terry and I chat, what comes to mind for you on this
Mm,
topic of mental health and what we've shared already?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you all for being so brave to do and have these beautiful conversations with people. And, mental health, I come from the place of a very biological standpoint. I was first a biologist, and then I became a teacher, and then a therapist. And so I look at things from different angles. And I would say, some of the things that you all were talking about in terms of being afraid of like repeating those patterns, or, what does that mean for you in terms of like, are you doing enough with your own mental health and care? And so one of the things that I recommend is that we all get kind of checked out in terms of going to find a therapist. If
Yeah.
you're having any sort of challenge, like if you're feeling increased stress, then to just see if you could find someone. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a licensed therapist, it could be a minister, it could be a spiritual leader in your community, but someone who you feel can actually help you to identify some of the challenges that you may be going through and then point you in the right kind of directions.
Right, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
That kind of leads me to my first question for you. I feel like so often culturally we pay so much attention to our physical health, but not nearly enough attention to our mental health. Why do you think that is?
Mm. I think it's an excellent question, and I think first it has to do with the fact that we value helping others, but we oftentimes have a hard time receiving help or giving that same help towards ourselves. So I think there's a social, cultural kind of thing of, well, if you do things for yourself, you're selfish, or if you're not considering, um, those types of things. Also, I don't think that it's there has been so many stigmas around mental health, and the mental health field hasn't always been a safe field for a lot of people. I know that, I was fortunate enough to grow up in the 80s and 90s, and I was able to um, basically get therapy early. My parents,
Mhm.
but they wouldn't have gone to therapy, before me. So it's one of those things that I think that if, it's something that is acceptable in your community, or people know other people, then it's easier to access and there's less stigma. But there is a history of there being some things that have been done and in the context of therapy that I think some people are also wary of.
Mm,
Sorry about
thank you.
that. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, sometimes the
Yeah.
internet pops out and such.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, Along those lines, Ellen, I feel like communities of color seem to be more resistant to seeking help for mental health issues. Why do you think that is?
I think for a long time, the African American church was the primary source of spiritual assistance and the
Mhm,
community. And I
mhm,
think going outside of that community was often seen as, uh-oh, you can't listen to those people because they don't really know us. Or uh-oh, what are they getting in there and trying to program in your head? I
Right.
had, at one point some relatives who said that's witchcraft, if you go to see a therapist. So there was a lot of, I think, beliefs about that were trauma influenced in our
mm,
society, that
mhm,
is like, oh, stay with your community, don't go out, don't tell your business in the street, sort of thing. And telling
Right.
a professional is also that. I think, again, this is another, also sometimes a source of trauma for people. So if they have had access with mental health services, sometimes it was not in a pleasant capacity. It was in a
mm,
capacity of possibly having mandated services, or being told you've got to talk to this specific type of social worker,
Right.
and not having a lot of choice. So I think those are some of the main reasons I hear most often about the stigma.
right, right. Terry, do you have any questions you wanna ask? I don't wanna hog
Yeah.
up
Oh, that's
time.
okay. That's
Go
okay.
for it.
Um, what I wanted to ask you is, do you see more male versus female? Okay. Do you see more women resistant to therapy than men?
Mm-hmm. Mm. It's interesting.
Mhm.
It's changing. And I've
Mhm.
been in private practice officially about a year and a couple of months. And so what was interesting is that at the beginning of even that year of
Mhm.
being in practice, I was seeing many more females. But over time, I've started to see more males come in, or, more people in the transgender community
Mhm.
come in. So like it's a bit very interesting evolution. I think in a lot of ways COVID pushed everybody to a certain level because everybody kind of experienced a group trauma
Right.
and everybody became aware of some things during that period, good or bad, um, that I think disrupted a lot of lives. So I see that as usually an entry point for
Mhm.
a lot of people, but definitely still see more females than males.
That
Yeah.
kinda leads me to my next question. So what do you believe the long-term impact of the pandemic will be on our mental health as a society?
I am hopeful that it really improves our mental health because,
Yeah.
I hear, the way we met Stephen is through TikTok. And,
Mhm,
I'm a therapist and I get on there and I kind of, share mental health tips and things like that. And a lot of what I do is really teaching people about their nervous system, because whatever diagnosis or genetics you may have for number of different diagnoses, we all have a nervous system that's all wired in the same way. Some may be more sensitive than others. And I think that we're starting to see information about like the nervous system and like how to regulate yourself and how
mm,
to do those things in these forums that were not necessarily accessible for, that information wasn't accessible for everyone. um, and so I think it's coming across, and I'm hoping that it's going to improve us as a society too, because we're also seeing a lot of things that are very kind of unjust, that are part of the systemic trauma that affects us, not just the interpersonal and interrelational trauma.
I love the hope that's underneath what you're saying, because I too look at it all as an opportunity. And hopefully, more and more people will look at it as an opportunity and be willing to take care of that other part of themselves that's connected to their physical body,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So I really, really, really hope so. You keep talking about trauma, and you specialize in trauma. What exactly is trauma for folks who don't really know what it is?
So the word trauma actually means wound. And trauma, we oftentimes think of it as something that happens to us, but it's
Mhm,
actually something that happens within us. It's a response. It's a
mhm,
response to a natural system. So when something happens that is unexpected or overwhelms our capacity to cope, our nervous system kicks in. And whatever that response is, that is our experience of, you know, of that event. So we call that a trauma. But a lot of times people think of it as, oh, this event happened to you or this event happened to you. It actually can be several events in your
Hmm.
lifetime. Trauma, another word for trauma is stress. Under the old diagnostic and statistical manual, which is like the therapist diagnostic Bible, it used to label post traumatic stress disorder under anxiety disorders
Mm.
because it had so, and it's actually one of the extreme forms of anxiety.
mhm,
So really, I would say that a lot of what I like to do is to help people to understand their nervous system, that response that happens when we get activated, and realize some of those responses are because we got overwhelmed and those
Mm.
emotions and those old stories never got to move through.
Yeah. Hmm.
And
mhm,
so we default to old behavior, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So, it's like a person who's afraid of snakes and they're deathly afraid of snakes and they're walking through their yard and there's a green hose. They're going to have the same body reaction seeing
Hmm.
that green hose as if they saw a snake. And it will take them back to the moment maybe they were bitten by the snake or they,
Hmm.
and so it isn't necessarily trauma healing is about understanding how to rightfully see the world and how to rightfully navigate through the world with our senses, not being all hyper vigilant all
Right.
the time.
mm,
That's good.
mm.
I like that. I like that.
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's when you say hypervigilance, Ellen, it makes me think of, like, for my own experience, I think because of the trauma that I've experienced in my life and the environment in which I grew up in, it's made me very vigilant. Oh, oh,
Yeah.
interesting stuff happening technically
Yes.
today.
Yeah.
It's made me
Mhm.
hyper vigilant
Mhm.
in a lot of areas, and I think that's just been as a defense mechanism in order to survive and try to assure myself or my nervous system of some sense of safety. And what
Mhm.
I'm learning is through the therapy that I've been doing for the last year, that specifically focuses on somatic, like the somatic experience, and then also the medication I've been taking, which has worked really well for me to help me with my low grade depression and anxiety. I find that I'm less vigilant,
Mhm.
that I'm less hyper vigilant about my life and my surroundings and people, etc., which gives me a much more greater sense of ease and relaxation. Like, I'm not walking around like I have my guard on. It's
Yes.
exhausting to
Oh,
live your life with
Yeah.
your guard on. I
yes.
mean, nobody should have to live that way, and unfortunately, far too many people do. Far
Yeah.
too many people do. Do you have any of that, Terry? Do you feel any of that?
Um, oh my God. So for me, I'm, I don't slow down enough to even know
Mm,
what's going on. I gotta be really honest. So I am constant. So I am seeing a therapist. Um, but I am constantly so busy. I just finished school. Okay, I'm working full time. I have a ministry. Um, I have a drama ministry. I'm the drama ministry leader at my church. So and this is really, now I know this is a therapy moment right here, Steve. So,
Mm.
and we were just talking about that with my son. We're so busy being busy that we're running away from the things that we're feeling. So whenever I don't take time to like sit, I tell Steve, if I sit too long, it's like I should be doing something. I should be doing something. And I can clearly hear God saying to me, I need you to sit down for a minute. I need you to sit. And I missed my last therapy appointment because I'm so busy. But I realized that when I do sit still, I am anxious. I'm anxious, and that anxiety makes me keep moving and keep doing and keep grooving. Um, and I don't know what that's about, man. It's like,
Oh.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah, we lost my sister for a moment,
yeah.
but she'll come back.
Yeah.
That I identify with that. All she said, right, Ellen? I see us
Yes.
both like nodding, like, uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I
Busy,
have a
busy,
thing about
busy.
that. Yeah.
We be busy, busy, busy.
oh my God. So I just heard it. So oh my God, I hate
There you
this.
go. There
I
you
hate
go.
it,
Yeah,
but
it's
I
okay.
don't hate it. I
Yeah.
realize that, and he just said it to me. I'm running because I don't want what's wrong with me to catch up
Mm,
and catch me.
Yeah.
mhm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a whole word right there. That's a
That
That's a
whole word right
is.
whole
there.
word.
But the
That's the
beautiful
whole
thing
word.
is that nothing's wrong with you.
Nothing.
Right. Right.
Nothing's
Nothing.
wrong with
Right.
you.
Right.
Nothing's wrong with any of us. Like
Right.
all of these things are here to teach us and to help us
Mhm.
become more of who we
Right.
are. And
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about the importance of getting help. Like no one
Right.
gets through this life alone. We all need
Right.
support.
Right.
And there's what we're experiencing is nothing new. We all
Right.
experience this to different degrees. And so,
Right.
oh, I love that you had that moment. Oof.
Yeah. And it's like it's not it's like, okay, if I sit still, I have to start thinking about all the things on all the areas that I need to work on and things that I've been
Mhm.
avoiding trying to, but I can tell you this, what I have done this year.
Mm-hmm.
55 hit different this year. 55
Mm-hmm.
hit different for me. Like this
Mm-hmm.
year I said, at the beginning of the year, I said, I'm going to say no to some things.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say no and
Mhm.
be okay with it. And
Mhm.
I have started doing that. What
Mm.
what I need to start doing though is I'm saying no to this right here, but then I go over here, ooh, and I pick this up a little bit. Or I might pick a little piece of this,
Mhm,
So
mhm.
um I got to work on that. I know that's something that I need to work on, but I am making it a point this year to work on me. And then, I got to say this, I noticed that you are also a marriage therapist.
Yes.
Here's a really good question for you.
Okay.
Mm.
What do you say to a spouse who has a spouse who will not go to therapy when clearly it is needed? What do you say to that spouse who
Yes.
wants to go and they
Okay.
have a spouse who will not in any way go?
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Okay.
it's needed like in all kinds of areas and all
Mhm.
kinds of, yeah.
May I ask a follow-up question? Just one
Yes,
follow-up question.
yes,
What is the
yes.
resistance about going?
That spouse does not believe in therapy. He
Okay.
does not. I done said it now. Listen here. My husband, right?
Mhm.
He won't go.
That's
No
fine.
Okay.
longer asking for a
No,
friend.
Yeah.
I'm not even asking for a friend. Okay,
Let's just
I'm
be
just gonna
real.
lay it
Let's
out.
let's
I'm
let's let
gonna
let
lay
it
this
out.
out here.
Let it out.
Listen, we've been married 30 years. 30
Mhm.
years. 30. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
And during that time, and Steve can attest, I have grown like exponentially. I mean, like, whoo, I'm
Yeah.
way like gone, right?
Mhm, mhm,
But he is in the same spot he was 30 years ago. I'm not even gonna lie. Okay.
mhm.
Good person, very, very responsible, loves his family. But his mindset is so closed. It's so closed that it makes it difficult to even, I mean, we can't even talk about it because he already knows my mama crazy and all. We have that kind of issue in our family, so he is very resistant. There's like therapy's not even on the table. I'm gonna be honest, it's not.
Mhm, mhm.
So trying to maneuver that is very difficult.
Mhm.
Yes,
So what do you
absolutely.
say to somebody? And that somebody is me. So
Absolutely, absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
out there
Well,
now.
just for somebody, just from somebody.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
would
I
I
know
would
there are
de
other people that are like that. That are
Oh,
spouses, and it
absolutely.
doesn't have to be the men. It could be women that are wives that are resistant to it, or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, seriously,
Yes.
it's yeah,
Yes, yes, it's
it's a
anybody.
thing.
Yeah, and it's that's a really challenging position to be in. So I want
Mm,
to recognize that. And it is one of those things that it ultimately therapy is always somebody's choice. I don't like to have
right,
people get ultimatums or whatever.
right,
I think the
right,
the thing that I normally tell people, and I as a couples therapist, as a family therapist, I see a number of couples individually, one member of the couple, and this is a very common thing. So I normally say, first and foremost, be rooted in the fact that you're doing the work for you,
hmm
and realize that your modeling of what you're learning and letting them know, okay, it is safe. I can go in there and share. This is
right,
what I'm learning. Sometimes it's starting the conversation of like, this is what I'm learning about myself. This is how I'm expanding to without saying, I need you to do this, because
right,
sometimes people's fear of like what's going to be uncovered is so high that they
hmm
don't want to even try it. So if they see
right,
that you are modeling it and you're doing it, I think that's step one.
hmm
If that is not, and I know you've said you've been doing your work for years, and the other piece is seeing if there's another accessible way into a therapeutic environment. That may be
mm
a men's group. That may be
hmm
a drum circle. That may be,
hmm
something else that may serve in a purpose where there's community. Because ultimately, the best type of therapy links you not only to yourself, but to others in a more meaningful way. So if there's other opportunities there, then maybe start with that. But unfortunately, can't make anybody.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not gonna happen. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that community would probably have to be a bar, maybe with a few widescreen TVs or something, a few games or something like that.
Mhm.
Because he
Mhm.
doesn't.
There's game nights. There's game
Yeah,
nights at home with
yeah,
fun questions, and
mhm,
but
yeah,
again, that people, and I think a lot of it, again, most of the reasons why people are afraid is because they're afraid that something is going to come up that they're not going to be able to handle,
mm,
or that somebody is going to tell them something about themselves that they don't like,
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
you know.
It's interesting what we're talking about right now leads me to another one of the questions that I had, because what you're describing underneath it all, I see and I feel untreated trauma. Untreated
mm,
trauma.
mhm,
And so can you talk to how untreated trauma impacts our interpersonal relationships,
Ooh.
in a nutshell?
Yeah, that's a big one. So
Mhm.
okay, so I'm gonna tell you a little. I'm gonna nerd out a little bit because I want
Mhm.
to explain why it really does impact. So our bodies, like I mentioned, we have our nervous system, and our brain is a three-part brain. The first layer is our frontal cortex. We think about that as our thinking brain. The middle layer, which is like at the thumb in the middle of our hand, that's called our limbic system. That's the emotional center of our brain.
Mm.
That is like the lizard brain. And then there's the brain stem and the bottom of the brain. And then there's the vagus nerve, which extends all throughout our major organs. Okay. Now, when we are sensing information in our environment, we're taking in all sorts of information and we're deeming, is this information safe or is there a trigger in here? That could be a conversation with someone, that could be an object, that could be a place, that could
Mhm.
be a sensation. Whatever those things are that were possibly unhealed trauma, when we sense them, it doesn't go to our thinking brain first. It actually goes to that emotional center brain. And
Mm.
if it's a trauma, what it will do is activate that brain. So thinking goes offline. So part of our brain, our thinking brain and our relational brain goes offline. And when that happens, we first go into a state of what people call fight or flight.
Mhm.
Well, fight or flight looks like in normal everyday relationships, defensiveness,
Mhm.
anger, rage, no care for consequences, impatience. You know, if you're like in a bad mood and you go to the supermarket, you're going to be much more irritated because you're already irritated if something happens. Because when we get into that state of hyper arousal, what happens is our body wants to get out of there. So we start surging with energy. Okay. If we stay at that level too long, we downshift into freeze. And when we go
Mhm.
Mhm.
into freeze, we go into collapse, we go into
Mhm.
apathy, we go into
Mhm.
numbness, we go into I don't really care about this anymore. And
Mhm.
and so our nervous systems can be set off by previous traumas, relational traumas, and cause us to behave in the moment not so pretty, not so kind. But when we're
Mhm.
in our like regulated nervous system, when our brain and our bodies are working together, when we're in our what is called window of tolerance, we're able to communicate, we're able to share joy, we're able to be creative, we're able to solve problems with each other. So all of those things happen, but when we don't treat the trauma, we're not treating the underlying reasons why sometimes we get activated in conversation, or sometimes we run away, we avoid things, or sometimes we freeze because we've been through this sort of situation over and over again and just it gets better to get numb. So all of that impacts our personal well-being, impacts the others people's bodies and their nervous systems.
Right. Wow. Thank you for thank you for condensing that for us. I mean,
Yeah.
giving that to us in a
Yeah.
nutshell. That's really
Yeah.
helpful. It
Mhm.
makes me think about how, as Terry and I were saying at the beginning of this, that we come from a family where there's several people who struggle with mental illness, and I know there are lots of families out there like that. And I'm just thinking about how, because we all have our different traumas that we've endured, we're all sort of bouncing off of one another and our triggers and our traumas and stuff. But one of the things that I am really conscious of today is that that's hard and it's hard for everybody involved. And my question to you is how can we best help our loved ones who who are struggling? I mean, we're all challenged, but I would say that they're struggling perhaps even more than we are. How do you think
Mhm.
we could help or be of service, be part of the solution
Yeah.
instead of the problem?
Yeah. Part of what I'm going to say again is to model it, to be calm
Mhm.
yourself, to work on regulating yourself and staying in your own calm window of tolerance. Because when
Mhm.
you get hyper aroused, your body gets tense, you get more hyper vigilant, all of those types of things. So if you're monitoring your own peacefulness, if you're looking at your own joy, you're not
Mhm.
feeling
Mhm.
rushed, you're not feeling out of the moment, you're feeling perfectly connected, then you're able to make space for other people. And they
Right.
don't feel my mother used to say it takes two hands to clap. So
Mhm.
some people, all they want to do is clap with you. And so when you get dysregulated and they're dysregulated, haha, you're clapping now, and then you have a whole bunch of noise. Okay. So
Mhm.
my thing is that if you stay over here, like, okay, I'm not going to be drawn in to this because I'm going to protect my peace, that's one way. Another is to establish boundaries. And boundaries are the place I love when Prentice Hemphill says this. She says, or they say this. Boundaries are the exist where I can love you and me at simultaneously. Where I can love you and me simultaneously. So sometimes that does mean if you are acting out, You're calling me out of my name, or you're being
Mhm.
disrespectful, or you're saying all sorts of stuff that isn't true, then sometimes the boundary is I have to love me so that I can also love you. Because if I am in an environment where you're constantly being inappropriate, then that's going to take me out of my state of peace, my window of tolerance, and then we're
Yeah.
clapping.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to have those boundaries where you set distance between people who aren't always the most helpful. And the
Right.
third, I would say, last thing is just ask, talk about your experience. Ask, are you willing to explore? Don't tell, ask, because people need their own time and their own journey coming to it.
Mm, thank you so much for
I
that.
like that.
I had another question, but you actually answered it. My second question, and that because really it was how we best help ourselves, and what you said did address that, just in terms of being conscious of your own nervous system, how you're showing up to the moment, and having healthy boundaries, and how that's the best for everyone. It might not always feel that way, but it's the best for everyone. We don't have a whole lot more time, but I know Terry, you had a final question
Yeah,
that you
just one
wanted to ask.
question. And I like what you said about boundaries. Um, and one of those boundaries, maybe you don't answer certain phone calls because you don't have the space for that energy. I mean, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you don't have the
that's
bandwidth. Yeah.
No.
yeah, don't have the
No.
bandwidth, don't have the
Yeah.
bandwidth. So my final question to you, and this is just for you. How, child, how do you do what you do and not absorb any of it? Who does the go to?
Oh,
You
that,
know, that is
yeah.
that's a lot. I mean, even as a mom or even as a coworker,
Mhm.
people are, because you want to be a safe place for them and you want to be able to listen. And I'm not a professional or anything like that, but I could just imagine you at the end of the day. What does your downtime look like?
Okay.
You,
That's an excellent, and thank you for that
How does
question. Thank
Ellen
you.
take
Thank
care
you.
of Ellen? Because we're
That
moms. A mom
your
is a
mom.
therapist. A mom is a
Yeah.
cook. A dad is a chauffeur. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to hear it from the professional.
Okay, I give myself enormous amounts of grace. Enormous
Okay.
amounts of
Yes.
grace. That's the
Yes.
first and foremost thing.
Yeah.
I also, and this is going to sound weird, but I really feel like this is what I'm made to do. I don't know
Mhm.
how it is. I don't know if it could be. I think I have my family history of like storytelling and oral history. And so
Mhm.
it's like I love hearing, even like as a trauma therapist, I'm literally talking to people about their trauma 6 hours a
Mhm.
day, like individual. So it is a lot to hold. I'm going to
Mhm.
acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that there's so much beauty in the resilience of people.
Yeah.
And so a lot of when I'm listening to their worst stories, their worst moments, their most scary things, it's like I am able to hold it because it's like I see the totality a lot of times for where people have come to and how courageous they've been. So I think I set my sights on looking at the growth. I don't
Right.
look too much at the darkness, but I do. There's some days where I'm like, oh, it's time to just get in the bed. Like, um,
I can
and
imagine.
yeah,
I can just imagine that.
yeah. The last
Yeah.
thing I think is humor. Like and community and humor. Cause
Yeah.
like I was watching some shows today and I was just like, but I take time. I have to, like there used to be the part of me that was always doing. Like I would
Mhm.
never sit down.
Mhm.
And with my son, I'm a single parent. So like he legitimately I could be doing things 24 hours. I have had to learn how to carve it out and to be
Mhm.
give myself grace for the things that I don't get a hold of doing. But all those other times I get afraid, I cry, all that stuff. Even see me cry. So
Oh,
Okay,
that's great.
well, good. Thank you so much for sharing that and being transparent with that, because I think that's important that we're human. and we cry, we laugh, and we just do the best we can with the life we've given. But I definitely hear you when you say this is your call. This is your assignment.
Mhm.
And God has given you the grace to do it. So I think that's amazing. And thank you so much for sharing and for helping. And if I could ever get him to see a therapist,
Show 'em some of my TikTok
oh yeah,
videos. Maybe
yes,
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
different type of therapist. Because sometimes
I,
also it's the type of therapist you've seen is not the
mhm,
yeah.
type of therapist that you need.
right,
It's
Okay.
right,
true, true. It's
Okay.
important to see representation because that
Yeah.
also
sure,
impacts
yeah,
how it penetrates you.
yeah.
Ellen, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so much.
coming on and talking to us today. I so value you and appreciate you and love you dearly. How can people engage with you and your work?
You can go to my website, www.ellenswright.com. I also have TikTok. I'm at Right Connector on TikTok. And through those two places, you can find my YouTube.
Excellent.
Awesome,
Everybody
awesome.
check her
Thank
out. Ellen is
you.
amazing. She's
Yes.
Thank
amazing.
you.
Love you, Ellen. Thank you
Love you.
Thank
Thank you
again.
so
you. Nice to
much.
meet
Blessings. Speak to you
Okay.
you.
soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, Ellen.
Bye.
Wow.
That was good.
That was very good.
That was very good. Yeah.
Any reflections on this? Anything?
I need to slow down. I need
Yeah.
to slow down. I do. I really do. And I need to show myself as much grace as I show to other people.
Mhm.
Um, I think I show more grace than I give myself. So, yeah, yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
That's great that you had that. I think my key takeaway is mm, how important it is to really listen. Listen to what your gut tells you. Like
yeah.
your gut is telling you certain things about what you need, and
Hmm.
there might be a little resistance there, but
Hmm.
you are getting messages, and you're
Yeah,
becoming more and more willing to listen to them and respond to them.
yeah,
And for me, it's a reminder to keep listening, keep responding, keep doing what I'm doing, be open to gather new other tools to help me be the best version of me that I can be,
right.
and to not give up, to not give up. Keep pressing forward. Keep pressing forward. I think that conversations like this are so important because we all need each other. People need people, and no one gets through this life alone. I was saying people need people, and no one gets
Yeah.
through this life alone. And so it's a reminder to keep reaching out like that. Just the three of us having a conversation like this is so healing, so
Yes.
healing.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
it's like only thing that comes to mind is just as healing and nutritious as mother's milk
Yeah.
is to like
Hmm.
a human being.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's what these kinds of connections
Hmm.
are. So anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation as much
Yes. I hope
as
so.
I did. It was deep
Yes.
and heavy at moments, but it was very
Yes.
fun and light too. And that's how we
Hmm.
gotta take it all in life. Have a
Yes.
sense of humor about it,
Yep.
but
Yep.
be real and be willing, and yeah, keep showing up. I
Yep.
love you,
Keep showing up.
sister.
Love you, brother.
Have a good night. I'll see
You
you again
too.
soon.
Love you
Bye.
guys.
You too.
Mwah.